Hey guys, this is Tony. Welcome to the Red Bear Podcast. This week we're going to be talking about It, doing a quick review for you on that. Also, a quick review on Mother, Darren Aronofsky's latest film. It's gotten a lot of crazy reviews, so we'll give a little bit of a recap on our thoughts. And also, the Punisher trailer came out, which is going to be released on Netflix, so we'll do a little bit of a talk on that trailer. So stick around.
Beer Podcast is brought to you by these cool dudes.
The guy wants to talk about clowns in the sewers. I mean, what kind of clowns are in the sewers? Clearly, Pennywise. Yeah, it could be a Pennywise and a horror foolish. You know what I mean?
So this week we got Ren with us. What's up, Ren?
Hello.
We got Jim Rock with us.
Hi.
And of course, we got my man, Cooley. What's up, dude?
What's up?
Yeah, what's up, dude?
So
we all saw It that came out this past week. Actually, let's take a step back. Jim did not see It.
For the listening audience who doesn't know me, I cannot watch horror movies in the theaters because I get incredible anxiety.
Yeah, well, I think we kind of showed that or proved that the end of last episode where Ren scared the crap out of Jim.
Show enough.
Also,
Jesus,
I call them hat movies. I have to wear a hat so that I can pull the brim down, but that does not stop me from holding my hands up in front of my face. That is a literal thing I must do.
I didn't watch it in theaters at all because Facebook had free torrents all week, baby.
Oh, shit, for real?
All week. Yeah, if you know, like, really terrible single moms who also happen to be juggalos, they happen to have links on all of their Facebook pages.
Is that a thing? Did a lot of ICP fans go see this show?
My acquaintances did, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we all got a chance to see it except Jim. So I guess let's just I'm gonna go last on this one. I want to start with Ren. You and I talked about it a little bit today. So what did you think of the movie?
So, the movie was excessively long. It was a very long movie, which would have been fine. I feel if first off, I hated Pennywise's costume design. Like, I thought it was so terrible. His buck teeth were not intimidating or scary in any way. The giant, weird balloon forehead, also a terrible decision. Like, Tim Curry's Pennywise was terrifying because it was so bare bones, because it could have just been like anybody or anything. Like, he had the really spooky eyes and the really spooky teeth and the really janky costume, which made it really scary. This was like a super ruffled guy. Like, ruffles don't scare me, and he had ruffles on literally every extremity. Like, it wasn't terrifying. He just looked like a weird clown jellyfish guy.
The weird thing about the costume when I first saw it as like, with him in the poster, I was like, okay, he's wearing like Shakespearean garb.
Yeah.
Like, it was kind of like, okay, he's like an old clown.
Yeah.
Ruffles have ridges.
Yeah.
If it was like a small child in that costume, terrifying. Like, small child with big buck teeth, but like Bill Skarsgård, it wasn't scary to me, and his voice was just like, man, like it was an okay voice. Like, his whole character just kind of ruined it for me right off the bat. And then you have all these child actors who are great. Like, they're very talented child actors who I felt like they bit off too much, like much more than they could chew. Like, they introduced Mike, the kid who just happens to be there for the fact that he can shoot the gun into, Pennywise, because his dad has the gun. His father's like a slaughterhouse.
cattle.
Yeah, slaughterhouse guy. And he's like very weirdly placed throughout the story. Like, they focus on like him being there and that this is a thing that he's trying to overcome. And then he doesn't come in largely until the end. Then the kids, they focus on like, here's Bill, and then here's Beverly, and then here's the chubby kid whose name I forget, and then here's Henry, the really terrible bad kid. And they jumped so all over the place that you kind of were like, oh wait, what was his story again? After
Right.
like 2.5 hours, you're like, oh wait, what was going on with this kid? Oh yeah. So I wasn't fully invested in the storylines or the characters, which you should be, because you're trying to like really pump these kids up. Like these kids all by themselves have to take on this, entity who's been around for hundreds of thousands of years. And I just was like not into these kids at all. It was like, okay, this kid's got a speech impediment. This kid's just being bullied because he's, chubby and into New Kids on the Block. Like there were some things that I loved. Like when they closed the door and the New Kids on the Block poster was there.
Yeah.
And Beverly just like looked at him and just like opened the door up again to hide it. That was really funny. The projector scene where it cuts to Pennywise coming through like the projector, terrifying. They
Which,
could've-
Jim, you actually saw online.
I
and
did,
that's one of the
yes.
reasons you were like, I'm definitely not going
Oh
now.
yeah, I watched a couple of those scenes on YouTube because it was leaked on YouTube, and yes, I
Yeah.
watched the projector scene amongst other scenes, and I
Right.
watched that, and instantly I went, no.
Yeah.
Pardon my language. You can edit
I
that
don't-
out
yeah.
clearly. But I was like, no way I'm going
Yeah.
to see this movie in theaters.
Definitely.
Yeah, there were beautiful scenes, like especially when they showed all the bodies hanging from the well. Like
Yeah.
there were gorgeous scenes, but I feel like they really goofed with Pennywise's design, which instantly sets the whole theme for the movie, and they just goofed.
So you're talking about a lot of things that I was going to touch upon, so I'm just going to piggyback on this. I
Cool.
mean, like the costume at first when I saw it, I was a little like in the poster, I was a little kind of turned off by it because
Right.
I was expecting more of like the Tim Curry Pennywise. That's the only thing I really have to compare it to.
Right.
And I love that character so much. So, or his interpretation of it. So when I saw the costume, I wasn't into it. Throughout the movie, it did grow on me.
Okay.
The teeth, I will agree with you. I thought that was a little weird that he had kind of like buck teeth. I
was
would have.
so dumb.
It kind of was like, okay, well that makes him look kind of like weird, like nerdy almost. Like why would these kids be afraid of him?
Yeah.
And then,
But
But
could that
the-
possibly be the point, is to make him look non-threatening?
Yes.
that's my other point is that as the story went on, that also grew on me. Where like I was like, okay, like that's making more sense to me. Like I get it, but I also the forehead of him, like with the hair on the back, I liked that. I actually did like that because it made him look not like a clown, something that they actually would be afraid of.
Okay.
And that actually I feel like brings his eyes way down, where he can kind of tilt his head forward and like give that really weird look where like the balloon comes up and he's got that really weird smile. Now the voice of Pennywise is the only thing that I had a little bit of an issue with, which you mentioned. Being so fond of, like I said, Tim Curry's interpretation, he has a very unique voice, and I loved that so much. So when I heard Billy Skarsgård's interpretation of it, the voice automatically, I was like, oh, that's the
Yeah.
voice he's going to use. Like I wanted something that could still draw the kids in, that they could perceive as friendly, but for us, you know that it's darkness. And I didn't get that. It was too goofy.
It
to
had
the
like
point
the
where,
goofiest connotation. It's like that guy who like asked every girl's like, "Where's my hug?" That's like how he talked, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Oh no!" But like the buck teeth were too accentuated. They were too wild. So it wasn't even like buck teeth to make him look kind of like innocent. It was like buck teeth where they were like poking out his bottom lip. Like they were excessive.
Yeah. I mean, overall, I mean, there were some great things about the film. I personally really liked how graphic it got when Georgie got his arm ripped off.
I thought that was goofy.
I really liked that because in the first movie, like we saw something, but we didn't see that. I mean, like he gets his arm ripped off, and then this hand comes out of the sewer and like pulls him in, and they didn't find his body in this version, and in the first movie they did. He just like was, it was the arm was ripped off, but I mean, like it was for me. The other thing I really liked was it took place in the 80s, where in the book, in the original one, it took place in the 50s. And like there were a couple scenes where, yeah, like they're in this kid's room and you see like a Beetlejuice poster on the wall. And I'm like, all right, cool. So the 80s, feel to it really kind of also reminded me of like the Stranger Things vibe, not to mention one of the kids in Stranger Things
Yeah.
was in it. So that
I feel
kid's
like they were
just
trying to
living off the
piggyback.
80s decade. But I
Best
mean,
name in the world, Finn Wolfhard.
yeah, badass name. And I think my other my other big thing that I really liked about the movie was they definitely took their time with really going deep into each character, though. I feel like, yeah, it was a little bit longer, but I like the fact that they spent time on each character and you got to really understand like their fears and what they were afraid of. And you saw those materialize like or manifest individually. So that was cool. And they were able to do a lot of things with CGI now with the fears of the kids that they weren't able to do with in Tim Curry's version. They were able to do some stuff with like how he changes and how the teeth come out.
I have to add to that also. I haven't seen the original in years. Like, I've forgotten 90% of this film, right? But as someone who clicked on a free Facebook link and doesn't remember the storyline, I found myself like skipping bits. Like I just wasn't invested because it was so long, and a lot of it I could predict. I was like, oh, cool. So obviously, the girl's going to be in trouble because they're focusing a lot on this girl and how all the boys like her. So it's going to unite them to try and save the girl. And like, there was just so much that was to be expected that it left more to be desired from the storyline. Like I was just like, oh, and this happened. Oh, and here's the kid who's got the gun. Of course he comes with the gun to shoot Pennywise. Like here, I
knew the gun thing was gonna happen.
Yeah.
I didn't see some of it coming. Like I didn't feel that it was long. I actually felt like the movie was like an hour and a half. Like I did get like the theatrical experience where it might have been different. And I know you watched it like part of it and then continue to watch it. So maybe it wasn't like that through line. I mean, there's some things that you called. Some of those things you called, I didn't. So I got a different feel from it. I liked it. But I mean, I don't know. I think it just goes back to like when you see something for the first time as a kid and it has such a big impact on you, you just want it to like live up to that or bypass it. And sometimes it just can't
do that.
And I think that's the problem. It's like my expectations were a little high. And of course they would be. Yeah. And I think that's why, when you only have one other thing to compare it to, and it just you hold it in such high regard. When you're a kid, how are you gonna? When
you're a kid, everything is so new, and you're emotionally invested in everything.
And I think that's exactly.
So when you see a remake of a movie, you're expecting to get that same feel. And it's just not possible because you're at a different part in your life.
Yeah.
I think you also needed. Like, Tim Curry is an exceptionally expressive person.
Yeah.
And the way his eyes... Well, don't even... I know, I said that and my heart hurt, so shh. But the way he could emote with his eyes and his mouth and make his cheeks a certain way under all that white paint. Like, his eyes are fucking terrifying in that movie. His eyes are the scariest thing. His mouth...
Yeah, his mouth... He moves his mouth in a very... And even if you watch him
Rocky
as
Horror Picture Show with a red lipstick, terrifying.
Well, Lord of Darkness and Legend, even the way he moves his lips as that character in his mouth, it's very specific to Tim Curry.
I'm excited to hear what Cooley has to say about this.
I'm waiting for you to jump in, man.
I'm just waiting for somebody to give me a shot.
I'm here.
Well, we're all jumping in
Shout
on
out
each
to
other.
Cooley.
Come on in,
Let's
man.
go.
Don't wait for us.
You
jump
guys
in.
are having such a good time talking. I
want you here.
No, I want
you in the party.
Yeah.
I guess I was just listening and just formulating what I'm gonna say, and that's I had zero problems with this movie.
Go
I thought
off.
It was fantastic.
But you told me originally before
from the beginning,
it was like a 9 out of a 10.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Excellent.
And the only thing that dropped it a point was maybe some of the CGI, because it seemed like some of it was just kind of like it seemed superimposed in some areas. And I think in today's day and age with the technology that we have and the stuff that we've seen, everything should be flawless. And especially a movie of this caliber, of this magnitude, of something that people have been anticipating and waiting for. Spend some extra time and make sure everything looks right. But aside from that, absolutely 9 out of 10. Nothing wrong with this movie at all. Especially I can't even relate to the idea that he doesn't live up or that doesn't live up to an older version of the film, just because I watched that film again before I went to go and see the movie, and the original doesn't live up to the original. Because when I was a kid, it was terrifying. It was amazing experience. I literally begged Courtney to watch this shit with me. I was like, "Come on, watch it, come on, it's on." We rented it. I paid for it. It started up and we started watching it, and literally we're like laughing through the whole fucking thing because it was. I'm sorry, excuse me, but we're laughing through the whole thing.
I agree with you on that one.
And it was just, yes, Tim Curry was great,
He was.
but
It's a saving grace.
But one man, a great movie does not make. So when I watched this one, I had high expectations for this to surpass what I saw, and I think it succeeded in every single way. And I don't think that, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that he was better than Tim Curry, but as a whole, the movie surpassed the original, and it was amazing.
And I think that brings me to a question I wanted to ask everybody, which was, does, this Tim Curry's performance hold up? And I think that in our minds it does, for me, it still does, because when I saw, everybody that I've talked to about this movie, including some of one of our coworkers today, we were talking about the original, and almost everybody has the same reaction. When I saw that movie, it scared the hell out of me. So for the time that it came out, it was very different, and it was scary to a lot of us when we watched it.
Oh yeah.
So as an adult, basically exactly what you're saying, I found out that Becca had never seen it. And I'm like, "Oh, well, you got to just watch this scene where he's in the sewer and he's seen for the first time." I went back and played it on YouTube, and I was like, "This is stupid."
Yeah.
And it's and it was corny to me, but when I saw it for the first time, it scared the hell out of me.
Yeah.
So I feel like it all goes back to when you saw it as a kid. You know what I mean? It was, if I had seen that at the age that I watched that movie in a sewer, I would have been terrified.
Oh, yeah.
So now watching that and having, and they're doing a lot more with it, I already knew what to expect. I knew there was going to be a clown in the sewer. I knew that what the character was. So that thrill's already gone, and it wasn't going to be, wasn't going to be able to hold up.
Well, I do. I think it's a generational thing, because if people today are going and watching this It movie without ever seeing the 90s miniseries, they're going to look at the new movie It and then try and compare it to Tim Curry, whereas everyone that grew up with the miniseries watches Tim Curry's performance and then tries to place it onto the Bill Skarsgård version. So it's a hard way to try and connect the two.
Yeah.
I do enjoy Tim Curry's performance because in some ways Bill Skarsgård had that as a blueprint to pick and choose what he might have wanted to use for his the movie version.
And I thought
that's something that Tim Curry did not have.
I thought Bill
That's a good
Skarsgård was
point.
great. I loved his voice. I loved his inflection, his tone, his the way that he, his animation, the way that he would not. And when I say animation, I don't mean the CGI. I mean his the way that he animated himself, as in the way that he moved and the way that his face contorted in some scenes, and that you can tell that it was his face and not CGI at that point.
I also want to say with Tim Curry, back in the 90s, this was a TV miniseries. This was not in the movie theaters.
Yes.
So in TV, you can get away with a whole lot more nowadays with what you can watch with The Walking Dead and shows like that.
Mm-hmm.
You could not get away with the violence back in the 90s. And what Tim Curry was able to bring forth was creepy for its generation.
Right.
Definitely. And the other thing I did not notice about this, and I forgot who exactly brought it to my attention, but the original movie that came out, comparing it to when this came out, was 27 years. And the character in it comes back every 27 years. And I thought that was cool.
That is cool.
I was like, all right, that's pretty
like
cool how
Twin
they did that.
Peaks.
So in another 27 years, we'll see what happens. But for those of you who haven't seen it, a little bit of a spoiler, but at the end of the movie, it does say, it, and then it says chapter 1. So there's going to be the second part when they're older, and we'll get to
Next
see
year,
that.
actually.
Well, I think
Next year,
I think a lot
exactly,
of people who have read the books, because I'm a huge Stephen King fan, I think we knew that there was going to be a second chapter.
Yeah, and I mean, with that in mind, you being a huge Stephen King fan, I want to open this up to the crew. What's the next Stephen King property that you'd like to see, come to the big screen, or as an adaptation, as a miniseries maybe, or whatever?
I know mine.
What's that?
I really, really, really love the novel Doctor Sleep, which is like a sequel to The Shining. It came out not too long ago.
No, only a couple years ago.
Yeah, and it's huge. It looks like one of the Harry Potter 7. Like, it's huge. But it follows Danny into like being an adult who works at I think it's like kind of like a retirement nursing home.
Yes.
And there's this little girl who has the Shining who keeps like beaming herself into his subconscious, and I think she messes around with like this little chalkboard that he has, and it brings in these otherworldly characters. Like, I don't even know how to describe them, but they're after this girl because her Shining is like the most intense one yet.
Wow. Okay.
And they actually bring back like Danny's father, of course, is passed, but they bring his like ghost almost into it, and like I cried at that part. It was so sad, but it would be such a different kind of film because so many of his novels have already been made into adaptations. Like, it would be a waste to remake them, especially because for the time that most of them came out, it was fitting. Like, I can't imagine Christine being like remade nowadays. Like, It would be so stupid. It would be like a hot kid like Chris Pine or, Chris Evans, one of the Chris's, with like a snazzy sports car, and it would just be so stupid. It really would.
Now, if they ever did Christine again, it would have to be Christine.
It would be dumb. So I would like to see one of his newer novels, like Doctor Sleep. I think would be really cool.
I couldn't choose. I had two that I would really like to see. I did want to see Cell become a movie, and it did. It's worth a watch, but unfortunately, it was in.
That was one with Jennifer Lopez, right?
No. Cell
that was the
is
Cell.
actually Cell is with Samuel L. Jackson and John Cusack. They were brought back. They used to be together in 1408. This one is about people and cell phones, and a signal gets sent through cell phones that turn people into raving lunatics, and it basically reboots their brain, and they end up having a hive mind. It's excellent. The movie was a little lacking, but when it comes to movies that I would like to see, I have two. From a Buick 8, I think is a cool idea. Some people try to lump it with Christine. Has nothing to do with that.
Nope.
It's about a car that is actually a portal to another dimension. And the other movie that I would love to see is actually a Richard Bachman novel. It's called The Regulators. It's about an autistic child that is like a demon possesses him, and he ends up having the ability to warp the world, and he ends up warping the street that he lives on and trapping people on that street into his own mind. And it's an excellent, if you haven't read this book, it is absolutely excellent. It is a lot of fun. Those would be my two.
All right, Cooley.
I've always wanted to see Under the Dome since I read the book.
TV
it was
show
a
did not
TV
do
show.
it justice.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. Like I'm afraid that we'll never see it in theaters because the TV show was, it was there and it exists. So, but I guess, I keep my fingers crossed because, whatever. I mean, it was remade and, I'm sure there's other things that will be remade. So hopefully we can see something like that. But I guess, maybe The Talisman or I would actually like to see a remake of Cujo.
I would love to see a Cujo remake.
Yeah.
I think Cujo still stands the test of time.
You know why?
I enjoy that movie so much.
Cujo's a great movie, and they did a really good job with the tension and the thrill of the movie, but there wasn't a whole lot that they could do with the actual the dog attacks, the gore, the
True, it wasn't
Right.
incredibly gory, but I thought that dog was scary.
That was
he
a
was
very scary
But
dog.
if you watch Cujo now, it's literally like you could tell, like, I mean, that dog's going up and licking somebody. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
he's not attacking anybody. Like they couldn't make him a vicious dog. Or
When they
whatever.
show
So-
him like chilling out, you're like, oh, he would be so cuddly.
Yeah. Yeah, like he's just chill. Like, but I would love to see Cujo remade in a way that, you know, they could make it truly terrifying in today's cinema.
Awesome. Good picks.
I mean, I'm not a big Stephen King fan, even though I've seen a lot of his movies. I just can't get into his like books. They're just like too long and too descriptive for me, or I get bored. But I mean, like
That is his knock.
That's true.
it's just not for me. But I mean, out of the stuff that I did read some of, and that I did get to see the movies. I mean, I was always a big fan of Carrie, and I also really liked when they did 1408 with John Cusack. I thought that they did an awesome job with that. I was really impressed with the movie. So, but I mean, I don't know. I'm not really a big Stephen King like fan. So I mean, from what I've seen and what I've read, I mean, like those would probably be the two picks. I was always wondering if they were gonna remake Pet Sematary because it was good when it came out, but I feel like I'm surprised that hasn't been something that somebody wants to do again. I don't know.
Yeah, Gage was a creepy kid, man.
When he was in the
Yeah.
top hat with the little cane,
Yeah.
that scared the crap out of me. And I
Yeah.
saw that for the first time like 4 years ago. So as a 24-year-old, that effed me up at like 3 o'clock in the morning. I had the lights on. I was like tiny baby in a tuxedo, like dancing.
Yeah.
No.
and his
Sometimes
laugh.
Dead is better.
Like, ugh.
That's weird. It's such a
Yeah,
weird.
we don't
And
go there.
The worst. I mean, I told you guys about like how I had to have my Achilles tendon stretched out because I would walk on my toes. But the worst was when I saw him take that scalpel and just run it across the back of his leg.
That messes anyone up.
Just
Like,
mess up
what
his
was
Achilles
it?
tendon.
Wax Museum or whatever.
No,
that
that
terrible.
was Hostel where they did that.
No,
That kid's
but there
Achilles
were-
tendon.
I feel like it was in Wax Museum too. It was Jared Padalecki and like
I think
what-
yeah, I know what you're
Yes.
talking
yeah,
about. Yeah,
because he got
Of
his
Supernatural
Achilles
fame.
heel. He
yeah.
got his Achilles heel sliced, and I saw that before Hostel, and I
Yeah,
was
you
like,
know
not
she's a
okay.
Supernatural fan because that's the only people that know who Jared Padalecki
Oh,
is.
I love
No,
Supernatural.
I don't even like Supernatural, but I like tall, dumb-looking men.
There's a lot that's wrong. There's a lot that's wrong with that show, but I love it.
I do too, man. That's one of my faves.
It's mostly really chunky girls who also like My Little Pony who love Supernatural.
Sweet.
Chunky
Jensen Ackles
girls.
was one of my favorite too. From because I liked him before in Dark Angel. I don't know if
Yes.
you ever watched that.
I loved Dark Angel.
Dark Angel is one of my favorite
That's
shows.
my shit. Sketchy was my boy.
Oh my god, yo, you and I are gonna have to talk about that.
Convos
Yeah.
for another time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, going
So-
off the rails.
Well, anyway, that is our It review as well as what we would think of our Stephen King picks. So that's all we got.
Mother, tell your children not to walk my way. Tell your children not to hear my words, what they mean, what they say. Mother, mother, can you keep them in the dark for a while?
So we're gonna talk about Mother. I'm the only one out of the four who actually did see the film.
With an
by-
exclamation point.
Exactly. It was directed by Darren Aronofsky, and it starred a bunch of very good actors. So just to kind of name a few, obviously it's Javier Bardem, Jennifer Lawrence, Ed Harris, Michelle Pfeiffer, and you can look up the rest of the cast.
Sounds like an amazing cast.
Yeah, it was. So what is the movie about? I will say this. For those of you who have watched the trailer and feel like it is a horror movie and you're like, oh, I want to go in there, this is going to be scary. It's not at all what it is. It's super weird. It's you just like watching this movie, asking yourselves questions the entire time. So when I walked into this movie, I went with my wife and my in-laws, and it was a good time. It was just fun to kind of watch my father-in-law hate this movie as it went on. And I was actually just trying to figure out what the hell was going on. And it's Javier Bardem is this writer, and he's kind of suffering from writer's block, and he's trying to come up with something to write down. And he's just keeps having this problem. I can't think of anything. I can't be creative, right? So at one point, you have this understanding wife of his, Jennifer Lawrence, who's just trying to be supportive. And then they get a knock at the door, and it's Ed Harris. And he walks in, and he's just like, hey, I stumbled upon your house, and, I thought this was a bed and breakfast. Come to find out, he's actually like an obsessed fan of this writer who just wanted to meet him, and come to find out, you find out that he's actually dying. And that was one of the things he wanted to do before he died, was to meet this writer. So then the writer, Javier Bardem's character, allows him to stay in the house, even though they'd never met before, without the conversation with his wife about this. And she's turned off, like, why am you letting this person that we've never met stay in our house before? And
which is valid,
right? So he's like, well, I just, what are we going to do? Like, tell him to go home? Like, he has nowhere to go right now. Like, in my opinion, his problem. But anyway, they invite him in. He stays the night. And then the next day, Michelle Pfeiffer shows up. You find out that's his wife, who also was coming to meet him there. And they both come in, and she's super aggressive, where, like, she is asking his wife, like, are you guys going to have kids? How are you sexually? And she's just like doesn't know how to respond to this. And she's a very shy, very, loving woman, but
Jennifer
Lawrence's character, but she's also just trying to kind of like be accepting to all this, but she doesn't like the fact that these people who she doesn't know are in her house.
Oh, of course, because your house is your safe place.
Right. And so as this movie goes on, more and more people start coming in, like, this couple's kids show up, and they're fighting over, like, they find out that their father's dying, and they start fighting over the will. One of the brothers kills the other brothers in the house, and then everybody.
Cain and Abel.
And so basically, all this is happening, and then basically, more and more people start coming into the house. They hold like the funeral, the celebration after the funeral there. Then they tell them to get out of the house. And then it calms down for a little bit. But then he gets creative because if these people came to the house, he gets his ideas, right? Then his book blows up, and all these fans come to the house, and he's like, oh, come on in. He's inviting them. And again, she's like, get out, like, stay out of my house. Like, why are you inviting these people? And she, at one point, is frustrated because she doesn't feel like he's attracted to her. She's like, why don't you, quote, she's like, well, if you're in love with me, why don't you ever f*** me? And so he basically takes that as a challenge and has sex with her. She gets pregnant. She's pregnant when these fans start to show up to the house, right? Mm-hmm. So it gets crazier and crazier. More people start coming to the house, right? Then eventually she's about to have the child when all these people are in the house, right? She has the child, and it starts getting nuts because it's almost like they live in this house where everything is old. Everything that she uses is old. The dryer and the washer are old. Like, the sink is old. Like, the bathtub is old. Everything's old. So it's like, what time frame is this? But then as people start coming in, you see like modernized people coming in modern clothing. And then like the SWAT team comes in when it gets crazy. And you're like, what the hell is going on? And then this is where it gets even more nuts. The baby that she has, she's starting not to trust him. She's like, I don't want you to touch this baby, right? And
I thought you were gonna say she gives birth to an iPhone.
No, yeah. So she ends up giving birth to this child, and he's like, let me hold my son, and she's like, no. She's like, you can't hold him, because she's afraid of what he's gonna do, because he's so trusting of these people that are in his house. She finally falls asleep. He takes the baby, hands it to the crowd. She chases through the crowd after it. They ended up killing it and eating it. And then she's freaking out. They beat the shit out of her, right? And then finally, this whole, like, she ends up like setting the house on fire and blowing everything up. And then at some point, he picks up this thing that he had in his office, which you guys can watch it, and the whole thing starts over again. So after watching this movie, you start to figure out that she is Mother Earth, and humans are just destroying everything. They keep coming into the house, and she's telling her to get out. Like, and it's a lot of biblical references, like the brother killing the brother, Cain and Abel, right? Ed Harris has this scar on his back where they kind of cover it up quickly. That's supposed to be like the rib taken out from Adam and Eve.
Yes.
Javier Bardem is supposed to be like God, like showing his child to everybody. The child is Jesus. We crucify him, we kill him, after the baby was killed in the movie, he's like, I understand. Like right after the baby's killed, he's like, I understand. You know, it's awful. It's so bad what they did, but we have to forgive them. And it's like, okay, like God saying, like, forgive them even though they crucified my son. And it's all these and so Darren Aronofsky just like took this concept that starts off as very strange, and you start to find out as the movie goes on that it has all these biblical references and it's Mother Earth. And it's like, and for me, your girlfriend Britt said it perfectly.
Yes.
She said,
that is her name.
She goes, this is a movie that college professors are going to have a field day with. And I love that she said that, because this is the type of movie where somebody's like,
yeah.
what do you think Darren Aronofsky was trying to say in this film? You know, like if you've ever had like a
If
class
you
on
love symbolism,
Shakespeare,
this
a class
is-
on Shakespeare, they're like, what do you think Shakespeare meant? It's like, you don't know what he meant. You weren't there. So
Yeah.
I wasn't like a big fan of this.
The thing, I actually, everything that you described sounds amazing to me, because I go back to the beginning of your retelling, and all I can think of is God has writer's block, and I think that is so dope. I'm sorry, like that's just that says a lot. You know what I mean? I think that's the, out of everything that he did, I think that's the message, is that God has writer's block.
That like he has a flaw. Is that what you're saying?
Not
like,
a flaw, but like God's just trying to figure out.
He doesn't
what the
know
hell
what to do next.
Exactly. You know what I mean? And like to me, that's what I take out of that entire story. So like you're telling the story, and then when you get to the end and you realize, oh my God, this is supposed to be God. It's like, oh, and he has writer's block. Like that, it just took me right back to the beginning, and I'm like, aha, that's dope. That to me, like just the concept is just dope.
I think for me, what I got out of it was that humans basically crap all over the earth, and like we don't know how vicious we actually are, because we in this movie are the demise of everything. Like we come in and basically shit on Mother Earth. Then after that, we take from it, and then she kicks us out, and then we come back for more, and like we take all the elements out of the earth. Like we take the oil and all that crap, and it, I mean, like it just shows you like how vicious we are as a species, and like that's what I took from it. You know what I mean? Like we don't know when to stop, and we don't know how crazy we are, you know, sometimes. So that's kind of what I took out of it. But I just feel like the way he went about it was the whole film just felt a little too pretentious for me. You know what I mean? That's just the vibe I got when I worked out. I was like, I got where he's going, but you really had to go to these lengths to kind of say that. Like you just went overboard, you know, and that's just my problem with some of his films. And they're not all bad. Some of them are great, but they're just like, I just feel like they're so full of themselves sometimes.
I mean, you made me want to go.
You're
and
nodding
watch.
your head.
I'm curious.
So I can't
Yeah.
wait to hear what you have to say, because I feel like you're with me.
I mean, you made me want to watch a lot of Darren Aronofsky stuff, like just to see like where he's coming from, because like art comes from pretension. I mean, like it's like you are pretentious if you think anybody wants to view what you've done. You know what I mean? Like you have to be. So sure. Like did he go overboard? Did he give his all, and did he put everything into it? Absolutely. And I can't knock anybody for that. So I definitely want to check it out. And I want to see, you know, I'll form my own opinion. Like I can't really form an opinion because I haven't seen it. So,
But
you know, we'll go from there.
But I feel like, just quickly before Ryan, you jump in, I think there's a difference between being proud of your art. Wow, that's totally Rhode Island. Wow. Your art. I'm just going to keep going. Being proud of your art, and also being conceited about it. Like you can draw something, or you can do, in my case, do like a monologue, right? And be very proud of what you've put together. But then there's a difference between doing the monologue and saying, this is the best, this is better than everybody else's out there. And like, I bring everything to this monologue that nobody else could.
But did he say that?
I feel like the vibe I got from his film was pretentious, and it wasn't, this is a story that I created and I want to share it with everybody. It was, look what I did and how I twisted this and how deep I went. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I get from some of his movies.
Okay.
And this would be the perfect time for you to jump in because I think you're kind of on the same page with me. I don't know.
This sounds like I would hate this goddamn movie so much. So, Darren Aronofsky, I think he came on the scene with Requiem for a Dream.
He did.
Which, I liked that movie.
It was a great movie.
I liked that movie, but at the end, I was just like, well, that was very pretentious seeming, and also you knew, like, from how things were displayed that he thought it was more grandiose or more intellectual than it really was. You were like, no, it's just a downward spiral with really great music from Clint Mansell. Like, his score
that theme with that violin is awesome.
Yeah, the overtures were all amazing. I mean, my email addresses forever were all based on his seasonal overtures throughout the...
Yeah.
They were on point. I loved them.
I liked Noah with Russell Crowe.
Yeah, well, people have a theory. People have a theory that Noah bombed, so he did this with another biblical tie-in.
Yeah, but like
So-
his other films, like Black Swan, border on like David Lynch, like I Think I'm Amazing, Insanity, where this person just thinks they're so talented and on another level art-wise, where you just look at it and you're like, no, you're just kind of like a crazy horny dude. Like, that's all that it boils down to a lot for me. So hearing about this film, as a woman of science, biblical shit I don't get off on. But I will say, as someone who knows about the Bible, that some of those themes sound very interesting, like the rib from Adam, and then
Yeah.
Eve comes in, and then the children are actually, you know, Cain and Abel. I think those themes are excellent. But it sounds like Darren Aronofsky's The Giving Tree, that he got really high one night and was like, you know, it'd be great if we like made The Giving Tree, but like biblical. And the play of it just sounds so awful and convoluted.
You know what it kind of reminded me of? The other movie he made, The Fountain,
Yeah.
with Hugh Jackman. I was like, what the hell is this?
So if you already think about it, like he's just playing off of old themes in the same format, just throwing in.
So, you know, I think my biggest problem with the whole mother thing is that don't make a trailer and make people think it's something that it's not. Like, present the trailer as what it is.
Setting expectations.
Setting
Village
expectations,
by
because a
M. Night
lot of people,
Shyamalan.
but a lot of people went into this with a certain expectation
Yeah.
because of the way the trailer was made.
Yeah.
And then were very pissed off when they went into this and found out that it was the exact opposite. Like, that's a way to turn off your audience. And I don't think that he cared, which is another thing of
It's very-
pretension. It's
yeah.
like, come see my movie. Wasn't what you thought it was it?
I think it's cute
Like-
that you guys think that Darren Aronofsky actually directed the trailer.
He had a
No.
say in it.
He did
Yeah.
not.
I
The
don't know if he
studios have
does,
says in
yeah.
that. The studio cuts the trailer. The studio puts the trailer
no.
out, and the studio markets the movie.
Yeah,
He-
they
no,
market
but-
it the
no,
way
the
they
studio-
expect the
the-
most people will come and see the movie.
Exactly.
That's
It's
not true,
not about
though.
the
That's
movie
not true.
itself. It's about how can we pique the most people's
It's also saying the
interest
studios
to come
like
and
this
see
movie is going to be
I wa-
terrible
I wanna
as
see
is.
this
Let's
movie.
shoot as a horror film.
I think Cooley's with me on this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious as to what this movie is.
Yeah.
But
I'm with you.
but I also feel like you guys are going to have a whole different experience because
I
you're
think we will
going into
because
it.
we
You already know what it's
expect
about. If
it
you
to
go
be
into
just
this,
pure symbolism.
that's all this movie was symbolism. If you go into it
Expecting a horror film.
what I expected or what we expected, it's a turnoff. If I went into it knowing these things ahead of time, I would
Yeah.
have been like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." How we
It's
did
like
that.
The Village. Everyone hated
Thank
The
you.
Village.
Okay, there you go. M.
It's
Night
setting the
Shyamalan, which is what you said.
expectation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
The
that's a
Hours.
very
Which
good.
I agree.
A very good.
Yes,
Actually,
a lot of reviews.
Not the hours. I was gonna say the others.
A lot of reviews for this movie is women just going, it glorifies like rape, and I disagree.
I don't think it glorified rape at all because she basically says, like, in the movie, like I said, I quoted earlier, she's like, if you love me so much and you care about me, why don't you fuck me? And then, like, he does, and she gets pregnant. He doesn't rape her. So I don't know what the hell they're
Just telling
talking
you
about.
what
But then
what
there's-
interviews.
but the,
I mean, it's intense.
The Hours presented itself as a psychological thriller, and it wasn't at all. But it also got like really good reviews. Court went to see it, and she was just like, meh.
Yeah,
But-
like The Witch with the 2 V's as a W. Like seeing that it was a Sundance film. It was set as a horror film.
I know what you're talking about.
And it's not so much horror as, you know, this art piece like Mother, but it doesn't sound like The Witch was artful. It was terrifying in an artful way. It played with the psyche. But Mother just sounds like some trash art piece that a college film student might make. Like, it just doesn't sound artful at all. It doesn't sound like a piece where I'd sit and really think after, like, wow, you know what made me consider saving the earth? Fern Gully. That's a great movie. Mother sounds like trash.
It really is. or the video of Michael Jackson's Earth Song. I don't know if you guys have seen that. Where you just see that quick clip of this guy beating a seal. I'm like, fuck this. Oh
that
my God.
sticks with you. Mother, you're just
but
like,
you don't
wow.
know, that seal might have had it coming.
Oh, Jesus. I knew that.
don't
When I
think
knew when
so.
I said that, something shitty was going to come out.
How's it shitty? You don't know that seal might be a pedophile.
Oh, God, dude. Oh, my God. Well, that's all we have on Mother. Now let's just take a second to hear a little bit about our sponsor. Supply and demand investing. Guys, not all investments are created equal. Did you know growth stocks devote most of their revenue in trying to expand or grow the company and offer investors little to no dividend payout?
Sounds like fucking bullshit.
Right? But value stocks split their revenue between trying to expand or grow the company and give their buyers dividend payouts.
That sounds better.
But the question is, which of these two means of investing do you think has performed better over the past 10 years? Well, to find out, go to supplyanddemandinvesting.com/redbeard. That's us, guys. Go to supplyanddemandinvesting.com/redbeard. Supply and demand investing helps compare investments in the hopes of delivering better than average results, whether they be long-term, short-term, or just something in the middle. And remember, like any good sports team,
Like the New York Football Giants.
yeah, when it comes to investing, there are times to play offense by investing in things like the S&P 500, and times to play defense by investing in things like bonds, CDs, or cash. So I say, go Patriots!
Yeah, but if we're talking defense, it's the New York Football Giants all day.
Yeah, but it's the Pats because they won last year.
Shoot on sight.
My pleasure. What do you know about my family?
I don't know anything.
Fair enough. They killed my family to get to me.
So the Punisher trailer actually came out on YouTube and kind of blew up. Guys, coming out on
trailer.
Netflix on November 10th. What did we think of the Punisher trailer? Cooley, go.
Oh,
Cooley, do it
I put
now.
you right on the spot, dude. That was on purpose.
so yeah, it's great. It's good trailer. It's
Yeah,
awesome.
You got to elaborate.
Loved it. The music was perfect. John Bernthal looks great.
Yeah, he does. Yeah. He looks hardcore military. Yeah.
John Bernthal looks great.
You're like, he's got a bowl cut.
He
Is
does.
that
He
what
has
you're saying?
bangs.
Yeah,
like,
no, there's a moment where he has a bowl cut. Yeah, but that, I mean, like,
Asian
his
Punisher.
yeah.
he's like, no, he doesn't have bangs he doesn't have bangs.
He has bangs.
No,
like,
he's
it's
got-
a
he's
bowl
got a- he's
cut.
got a
It's
marine
bangs.
cut. He's got
No,
hair on the
but
top
then
of
his
head.
hair is swept down. He's got bangs. I'll
Look,
show you again.
It's a
Super
marine
cool Punisher
haircut
team,
with a little bit of
go!
Lloyd Christmas.
Yeah, you know what's terrifying? A man who comes up and he has to use a bobby pin to clip his bangs to the side.
The use of One by Metallica was brilliant.
Excellent. It really was done well.
Yeah, and the way that they cut it, the way that they edited that song to go along with the trailer, and like all the
like the gun clips,
all
and-
that stuff,
oh,
so
awesome.
good. It was dude, like there was a point where he says, "What do you know about what do you know about my family?" The guy goes, "Nothing," and he says, "Fair enough," and he just blows his head off, and it's just like it was just so, I'm dying to watch this. Like,
Well, see, this trailer, it oozes masculine adrenaline.
Mhm.
Masculine, yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Yep.
It's like everything a man wants to watch.
Yep.
Yeah, like
Exactly.
Like if you just want to like see somebody like go on like a killing spree, like the Punisher in Daredevil, like in that jail scene where he takes out everybody in prison. This is what this entire show is going to be.
This is Charles Bronson, Death Wish. This is Steven Seagal, Above the Law. This is
such a good
pure
movie.
vigilante, fantasy fulfilled. It's gonna be. To me, it's just gonna be amazing. It's your.
Which you were talking about.
excited.
You were talking about the usage of Metallica's "One"
Right.
in this video. Excellently done. I think the lyrics that were placed in the trailer do it complete justice. The whole darkness imprisoning me, all that I see, absolute horror, like that encompasses who the Punisher is.
Right.
Because lo and behold, the Punisher is a maniac.
Yeah.
He's like Dexter. Like, he has a code. He murders people who deserve it, but he is still a maniac.
Right.
See,
No,
but
he
that's
is
one-
Dexter.
but
You're
he's
absolutely right.
He's one of these characters too that like even though because he has a code and you see everything from his perspective, you actually are on his side. And I think that's kind of why like a lot of people actually like the Punisher. Like,
But is he really likable, though?
I
No.
No, he's an anti-hero.
I would not
Yeah.
want to be friends with him.
I wouldn't want to be friends with him, but like, but when you look,
You
so when
put
I,
yourself in his shoes
Yeah,
if you
he's
have
saying-
empathy for
He's
him.
the
That's
guy
what
that
I'm
if you
saying.
grab the last slice of pizza, he's gonna stab your hand.
No, I don't think he would.
I don't know.
I don't think the Punisher would stab your hand for taking pizza.
yeah.
I think the Punisher has a
Without
bigger
asking
mission.
first if anyone wants it.
No, he's got a bigger mission, man.
I mean, I got to be honest, man, watching that trailer and seeing like, someone just walks into his house and blows his wife's head off. I mean, dude, if that ever happened to me, I'd go friggin' insane. Like, I would lose my shit. Like I'm just saying, like after seeing that in the trailer, I can't even imagine like something like that happening. And I like, I'd have to be checked in somewhere. I'd go nuts. So, I mean, understanding, put yourself in his shoes if something something like that was to happen. It's not hard to grasp the concept of going through that and like snapping. You know what I mean? So that's why I kind of like see it from his perspective. Do I agree with him going around killing everybody? But if I was in his shoes, I'd be probably just as pissed off. Would I go to those lengths? Probably not, but I'd still go crazy.
But the idea of the Punisher stems from situations that happened before his wife and his family is murdered. That does happen, and that's the final straw.
Yeah.
Right.
But he's broken from war.
Right.
He's a soldier that's already suffering from PTSD.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
What you got, Ren?
Okay, so I'm trying to align myself, but it's difficult for me. I worked at a comic book store. I see the people who like the Punisher. It's difficult for me to understand why they would like him besides the fact that he goes on a killing spree, because his main thing is like he's killing people because of his family. But most of these men would not have a girlfriend like ever. So it's tough for me to really like this because the fan base are like guys who, sit in the basement and like, yeah, F him up. I'm going to buy a 4X in the Punisher shirt. Like,
Yeah, it's like
it's people who I do not like having conversations
it's
with.
like Odd Future Wolfgang.
Understood.
Yeah.
Like how do you like a band that like most of the people that like it are like just posers and like, yeah, I get it.
Yeah,
They're like
so-
12-year-olds that have no idea what the hell Odd Future's talking about.
Yeah, it's tough for me to like set that aside because I spent years dealing with people like this. So that being said, I like that they were doing it. I get why they were doing it because Marvel and Netflix have this huge contract. They're making all these series. I can understand that. I don't necessarily like the John Ber character as the Punisher. I don't know. He's just got like a goofy face. It's hard for me to take him seriously when they give him, when his hair comes down, it looks like he has bangs and he's got this really distracting nose. The outfit is strange to me. Was it a bulletproof long sleeve vest shirt combo?
Not sure.
I don't know, but I was trying to decipher it. It's got like a weird texture to it.
It's what I'd do if
So-
I was the Punisher.
It's just.
But I wear a lot of black anyway.
and it's like the same old storyline. It looks like. So I mean, there's only so much you can do with it. It's like he gets to a point where he kills everybody. The end. It's always the same story with him, and it only kind of has to be the same story. He's the same set in stone character. So there's not much you can go wrong with it because you know where it's gonna go.
I do agree with you there because you said a lot of people come into your store and they love the fact that he just goes on a killing spree in the name of his family, and that's true in the fact that he uses his family as a justification for
Right.
killing, but that is truly not the reason.
No, we talked
why
about that. You
he
said
is
it was
murdering.
his last straw.
I mean, I can understand why guys like it. They just want to see people get messed up, and this is what this entire Netflix series is going to be.
He goes on these killing sprees. He kills people, blah, blah, blah. But it's what people want from Batman, from Captain America, from any hero that you know that doesn't kill. Everybody's like, oh, why doesn't he just kill the Joker? Right? He knows the Joker's just going to come back. He knows the Joker's going to blah, 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 blah,
I
blah.
think that's also lackluster about the Punisher, though.
Right. So you have all these heroes that adhere to their codes, which is, hey, I'm not killing anybody. It makes me just as bad as the villain, right? But then you have the Punisher, who was created to be the antithesis of those heroes. And for that reason, he doesn't even team up with other heroes unless there's no other choice.
Right.
Right? Like, you'll see them team up in comics, but it's because there's no, like, they're going after the same person. He's using them to as a means to his ends, and he's still going to kill these people.
But like I said, once
Like-
you kill everybody, you're done.
Right.
And then you're boring. And then you pretty much, it's just like a giant mass murder suicide. Like, there's nothing for you to do at the end of the day.
No,
that's
agreed.
all I wanted. That's all
And
I wanted
it's,
to
it's
say.
like
True.
the Crow. He kills everybody, and then he's just like, I'm going to go to the grave now. I'm done.
Yeah, but I mean, like, I mean, all those other superheroes probably do, have their own code and stuff. But I mean, this guy just murders everybody, and I
Right.
think that's what people want to see. They don't want to see Batman take him to the Arkham Asylum. They want to see the guy that did this stuff get murdered and pay for it hardcore.
Right.
And like, it's great that you locked him up and justice is done, but like, how about like death is your justice? And that's what people want to see. They want to see the end game happen and this dude get the death penalty because this dude said he's going to die, and I don't give a shit.
I think this is going to be pure chauvinistic indulgence. It's just going to be blood and gore and a man on a mission to murder, and you're going to get all of that.
And I
You're gonna get
guarantee
blood
you
and
that this is
gore
going
and
to get
guns.
awesome reviews because of that. So I wouldn't be surprised. It's obviously going to blow.
I cannot
I think
wait.
it's probably going to get better reviews than any of the other Marvel Netflix.
Depending on who
shows.
watches it and judges it. If a woman watches it, she's going to be like, same old song and dance, just mindless violence.
Yeah, but we don't know that.
Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, there
but we
might be
also
more to
don't
the
know that it's
story.
going to get great reviews. We don't know.
Yeah.
From what we've seen in the trailer, I think we can only guess because all the other trailers looked amazing. Iron Fist sucked balls.
Yeah.
So
Defenders wasn't great either.
No,
it wasn't
Defenders
great.
was
It
lackluster.
was very lackluster.
It wasn't great. So yeah, I mean, trailers they do paint a pretty picture, but it looks like and sounds
Mother.
like they've got a handle on the character and they're gonna give us what we're
He's
looking
very
for.
one-dimensional.
I'm
He's fine.
excited. It's just going to be mindless death. It's going to be Clive Owen and shoot 'em up. Just let's see what the body count is at the end.
So, like I said earlier, like we were talking about some of the other people that have played the Punisher. There's Dolph Lundgren. There's Thomas Jane, who I personally liked, and Ray Stevenson. So, I mean, out of all of those, I really liked Thomas Jane's portrayal, which I feel gets a pretty bad rap. I feel like he represented the character well, but I agree with Ren that the script was pretty poor.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
But he did his best with what he had to work with, and for that I give him credit because I've watched that movie like once all the way through, and then like it was on and I got sucked into it, and I don't know. I have no problem with his portrayal. The script's a little weak though.
Have you seen the 2012 fan-made short "Doing Laundry"?
Awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I don't have to. I'm not gonna say any more than that. It was, yeah. But I mean, like, I don't know. Do you guys disagree with me on the whole Thomas Jane thing, or are you with the majority of people?
I'm in agreement. Was Ray Stevenson the one with the terrible character who had the skin?
Jigsaw?
Yeah.
That was like so goofy that I couldn't even watch his movie. To be fair, he seemed like a tough
He
Punisher.
seemed like a great Punisher.
He seemed
He
like
was a
tough
great Punisher.
He seemed like a really tough
He
Punisher.
had the build for
but
it.
also
He had a terrible
goofy-
villain.
Goofy characters,
Yeah.
goofy plotline from what I saw. So I think it was also like a Thomas Jane. Like Thomas Jane I like, but he was more of like a Deadpool-esque character because there was so much humor in it while there was, killing. Like I like the popsicle scene where he's like, you're gonna smell burning flesh and you're gonna feel like a freezing thing. And he was like stabbing the guy with the popsicle and he was like using the blowtorch on the flesh. Like those were really funny scenes, not necessarily in line with the Punisher. But
And
I
I
thought
think that's why it was a problem for me.
yeah, because he's so goofy. But I thought that he played a great part. Like his look was right. I thought that he did a great job for a crappy script. Ray Stevenson, I thought was also looked good.
I didn't even watch that
Really,
one. I'll
really
be honest
tough.
with
But
you.
I
Yeah,
saw
loved it.
Jigsaw.
I really did enjoy it.
I couldn't take Jigsaw seriously. Also a Juggalo-esque character, like basically like Joker and Suicide Squad, that kind of aligned character. Like,
all
it
right.
was
Yeah,
just-
I'm glad I didn't watch it.
Yeah, it wasn't good. Dolph Lundgren, I watched that when I was really young, and I've always been like attracted to Dolph Lundgren. He's got like that mess you up metal looking jaw. He had the brown hair instead of the shitty blonde Norwegian thing going on. I liked the dark hair. Everything was dark and scary. I had the motorcycle. It was like all that metal vibrating between those legs. I was into it. He was like when you were young.
Apparently at a young age.
Yeah. It's like when your friend had like the hot 80s, early 90s dad. That's what he looked like, and I was into it. But not necessarily a great Punisher. That whole movie was also
I watched that
goofy.
once and I barely remember it, so I can't really even speak to it.
I like Thomas Jane because I liked the goofiness, but not necessarily a great Punisher. Ray Stevenson's probably most in line with the correct form of the Punisher, but I think it's all just like terrible scripts. Terrible scripts, hands down.
I'll just say from what I have seen of past Punishers, comparing that to Bernthal and what I've seen of him so far in Daredevil, I think he's gonna kill it, and that's all I gotta say.
I hope so.
So anybody else, feel free to chime in.
What about you?
I agree. I think Thomas Jane is the worst Punisher. I enjoyed the movie when it came out, but if we're talking about who is the best representation of the comic book Punisher, Thomas Jane is not it. It was a good standalone movie, but he wasn't as driven, and I don't want to use the word sadistic, but that's the only word that'll come to my head at the moment. I think John Bernthal is the best. I think he plays it perfectly in the broken man who's suffering from PTSD, who is just on a complete mission that he will kill everyone in his way. I think Ray Stevenson is a very close second. I think movie-wise, you're very correct, Ren, in saying that it was a goofy movie, because it was. In Jigsaw with the whole Frankenstein face, I think it was a little outlandish. I think it was too close to the comic book, but I think, again, he was a unlikable character. You could tell that his colleagues that were working with him did not feel comfortable working with him, but it was a means to an end where we have to team up. But at the same time, it kind of felt like he could do bodily harm to me if he doesn't agree with my perspective.
Right. I start at the bottom, and I am gonna put Dolph Lundgren at the bottom.
Yeah,
man. Like only because it wasn't the Punisher. Like the movie wasn't the Punisher. It was only Punisher in name alone. second would be like second from the bottom is going to be Thomas Jane, because they took a very beloved version of the Punisher story and brutalized it. I'm a big fan of Garth Ennis. They basically the story that they tried to use was the story that Garth Ennis wrote for the Marvel. I forget what they called it back in the day, but there was a Marvel offshoot that was all adult.
Max.
Marvel Max, exactly. The Marvel Max version of the
Alias
Punisher
was on there.
right. And that was a Garth Ennis book, and it was great. It was great. It was fun. But it was also very dark, and the Punisher was not anybody to be messed with.
Absolutely.
And that wasn't what they did in this movie. Like, the Punisher was kind of like he was a family man, but he never stopped being a family man, and you still seemed gentle. And that's not something that you should expect from the Punisher. But then third from the bottom, we're gonna look at Ray Stevenson. Ray Stevenson got a raw deal because he was perfect. I mean, he was definitely the Tim Bradstreet. It's like it looked like Tim Bradstreet used him as a model to draw the Punisher.
Yes.
So, my hat's off to Ray Stevenson. He did a great job. He looks the part. He played the part well. He looked like he stepped right out of Nam. With his hair slicked back, and he had like the whole military-looking suit. But the minute that he put his fist through somebody's skull, I don't know if you remember that scene.
Yeah, he destroyed a lot of
Yeah.
skulls
Like,
with his body.
I'm like, yeah, this movie's just bad. It was just a bad movie. I
will say, I hate to cut you off, but I think Ray Stevenson is the best at embodying the fact that he is capable. You see John Bernthal, everything that he does in vengeance for his family. But Ray Stevenson, I think, does an excellent job of showing off the skill that he received when he was in war.
Right. Yep. Absolutely. And yeah, you just mentioned John Bernthal. That's my number one. I'm putting him at the top, just from his portrayal in Daredevil. It wasn't even his show, and it was his show to me. Like, that show was all about him. So, like, just how unhinged he is, you know what I mean? Like, he's just such an unhinged person. You feel for him because, like, he's got, like, he demands sympathy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, you look at the way that he acts, you look at the character, you look at the things that he's doing, and you know why he's doing it, and he demands that you feel sorry for him, even though he's a monster to the nth degree. And yes, I don't think he showed the skill that Ray Stevenson showed, but he definitely, you definitely know he's not to be messed with. You know what I mean?
I think we're going to get that in this show.
We got a whole show to watch.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Definitely.
So yeah, I definitely put Bernthal at the top.
Wow.
Word. Well, yeah, so that's what we got for the Punisher. Guys, we are going to end here for this week's episode. I just want to give everybody a heads up that we will be going to New York Comic-Con at the beginning of October, so we'll have some good stuff for you there. And with that being said, we will see you guys next week.
Peace.
Peace.
Adios.
Later. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Red Beard Podcast. And remember, please make sure to like us on our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and subscribe to us on YouTube and iTunes to make sure you get all of our latest videos and episodes. And you can always find us and comment on anything we've talked about or what you'd like to hear at redbeardpodcast.com.